Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen.
Hello, and welcome to Behind the Mirror of Music. My name is Dannii Cohen. This week's guest is Tommy Hobson. Tommy Hobson is an American stage, television, and film actor best known for playing Shout in Nickelodeon's The Fresh Beat Band and Bryce Alexander in That Girl Lele. In theater, he performed in Dreamgirls, Smokey Joe's Cafe, Ain't Misbehaving, for which he won the Ovation Award for Best Actor in a Musical, Frankenstein, the NAACP award-winning Citykid the Musical, and much more. He is currently starring as Judah in the musical theater West production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I hope that you'll enjoy the show. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm doing good too. What are you doing right now in your life, in your career?
Well, life, I just got back from a spin class. A couple, but maybe like 8 or 9 years ago, I started going to this spin studio right near my house here in LA and fell in love with it. And then my favorite teacher, who also was one of my best friends, had to move away to deal with some family stuff. And I say he inceptioned me into teaching. So I now teach at my favorite spin place. So 3 times a week, I'm on the bike over there, and I I love it. So yeah, that's what's on today's agenda, and then this, and then food.
Yeah, that's so cool. And you can do thing that you love and get your actually your workout in as well at the same time.
Yeah, that's what when they first came to me, I said, well, I'm so busy. I'm lucky enough to like work a lot in my career. I don't know if I have time for this, and and my dad, my very wonderful father, pulled me aside and he was like, "This is a lot of ego, you know." Uh, he said, "What's the downside? You used to pay them to go there. Now they're going to pay you. You can go to as many classes as you want for free. You now have a set thing every week where you're going to get at least 3 workouts in. Like, the only downside is nothing." And I was like, "Cool." So yeah, so Sweat Cycle here in LA. I am in Toluca Lake. I'm up there 3 times a week, and such a wonderful community. And I mean, really, especially through the strikes and stuff, and COVID and fires and politics, all the things we have going on right now. It's such a great escape for me.
Yeah, it is. It's what we need, an escape, because there's really too much.
Yeah, yeah, but but also the Tony Awards nominations came out today. So like, there's some disappointment, I'm sure, from some people, but also a lot of joy today as well. We get to celebrate theater, so that's also fun.
It's absolutely great. I mean, the theater awards, and it is something in every country that people who love theater look forward to, because it's the one day that you get theater on your TV and you can just see everything that's going on at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, and then find out how much money you're gonna have to spend to see how many shows you're gonna have to go to New York and try to squeeze in.
Yeah. How did you fall in love with acting and theater and everything you do?
Um, Very good question. When I was about 5 years old, well, apparently I've always been kind of musical, and the problem was not the talent. The problem was I was very shy. So I would sing a lot when I was a kid, but you had to like catch me doing it. You couldn't ask me to do it. And then when I was about 5, I saw a commercial on television, and the little kid looked kind of like me, and I said, "Oh, I want to do that." And my poor parents, who are wonderfully supportive from that day to this day, but also are not like artists, in that regard. But I had an aunt on both sides of my family, who, on my dad's side, who had done TV, on my mom's side, who had done theater. So it wasn't a foreign concept to me. But I said I wanted to do it. My mom was on maternity leave from work with my sister. So she and my dad said, okay, let's set up some rules for him. Like, this is just a hobby. He's going to be a kid. He's going to play soccer. He's going to play basketball. He's going to hang out with his friends. We're going to treat it like extracurricular. And luckily for us, the money I was making from acting wasn't needed to run the household. So it stayed like fun. And so, I started professionally acting at 6 years old. I booked my first job, I think 3 months after I got an agent. I booked a commercial for a chicken company. And then before that first year was over, I booked my first guest star on a TV show called 227. And then we were kind of off and running. And TV and commercials was the main thing for those first maybe like 5 or 6 years. And then two things happened kind of at once. I auditioned for a boy band that Jackie Jackson of the Jackson 5 was putting together. And my parents were like, maybe he can sing. We don't know. And then I ended up getting in the group and they were like, well, oh crap, maybe he can sing. And then I booked a musical right after that. So I did my first musical when the summer I turned 12. And that was magic. I was the only kid in the show. It was a musical called Working. It's by Studs Terkel, and it's based on the book that he wrote, and it's all of these real life people talking about their jobs. And I was a newspaper boy, and it was just me and like 15 adults, and I was in heaven. And so ever since then, theater's been a big part of my life. So, finished high school, went to Yale undergrad, majored in theater there. Looked around after graduation and thought I can go to New York and I can, be cold and struggle, in a shoebox apartment, or I can come back to LA where I'm from, be warm, live with my parents for a little bit and get my footing. So I came back to LA.
Did it feel different from other kids at your age when you did all the acting and things at the time, or did you just have fun with it?
It was fun, strictly fun until I got out of college. And when I got out of college, I was like, oh crap. Actually, my freshman year of college, I had the realization that this is what I wanted to do for my life. And I called my parents and I said, hey, I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm going to be an actor. And my parents laughed and said, no one thought you were going to be a doctor ever. You told us when you were 6 years old, what you were going to do. And so I will say it's been a hard transition as an adult for it to go from purely love to it's my livelihood, because it takes some of the purity out of it for me, which is also why I love doing theater, because the immediacy of theater, I think, refills the tank of like, oh, this is why you do this. There's an audience getting an experience from it, and I'm having an immediate exchange with them. TV, film pays so much better, and I love it for that reason. But also, you get multiple tries, and it takes so long for it to come out. And then when it does come out, I have no idea what people's immediate reactions are to it. But it's still fun. But there is a little bit of stress attached to it now because I have a mortgage and despite my best efforts, I'm an adult now, so I have to care a little more than I did when I was a kid, when it was purely fun. And if it wasn't fun, there was no point in doing it. And my parents were constantly checking in, like, are you having fun? Is this fun? Because if it's not, this is what you want to do. There are a lot of parents who are the opposite. My parents were very much so like, the second you say you're done, great. If you don't want to go to an audition today, great. Like, you want to go on a vacation instead of doing that job, great.
That's a good attitude. I mean, you get to make your own choice, and you really, really know this is what you want to do instead of being pushed.
Yeah. And, like I said, I love my parents. I mean, they laughed so hard. I was crying, calling them on the phone. I was like, I got to tell you something terrible. I'm going to be an actor. And they were like, yeah, duh. Like, few people know what they want to do as young as you did. And you told us when you were younger, and they said, like, we know we kept it kind of fun and we treated it like a hobby. That was not to discourage you from doing it. It was to create an environment where you didn't have pressure on you, because you didn't need to work. I worked a lot when I was a kid, and my poor father, It's like I couldn't even write you off on my taxes because you made too much money, but I was supporting you. Like my money went into a fund, and it funded. It really came into play as an adult. I didn't need it as a kid, which was nice.
You started out after that to first in theater or on TV?
First, it was TV. Yeah, it was TV the first like 6 or so years, and then theater came in around like 12. Yeah, so from 6 to 12, all TV and film, and ever since 12, it's been a nice sort of combination of all of the things.
One of your first roles was to sing in theater when you were an adult was Ain't Misbehaving. Is that right?
Yes, yes, yeah, which was a really fun experience. My manager at the time, he's since passed away, but we worked together for about 10 years, and for the 10 years we were together, he kept saying, I think you should do Ain't Misbehaving. You are an Andre in Ain't Misbehaving. And I was like, oh, no, 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 no. Like, I've seen Ain't Misbehaving. Oh, man, there's so much singing. The dancing is so intricate. Like, I'm so scared of it. And the last job that he booked for me was Ain't Misbehaving. And so I finally got to do it. And it was magical. I was already friends with the entire cast. So that was great because it's a lot of work, and you show up on that first day and you're nervous as heck. But I was sitting there with my dear friends Natalie and Amber and Frenchie. Like we were they held it down. I was the only one who had never done it before, so the folks who had done it before kind of took good care of me. Our director, the legendary Ken Page, who was in the original cast of Ain't Misbehaving, God rest his soul. He took such good care of us. Our choreographer Jeffrey was like, "We're doing the original choreography, so let's go." And then the real treat of it was that at the time LA had sort of our version of the Tony Awards, which is the Ovation Awards, and I ended up winning Best Actor in a Musical that year at the Ovation Awards, and it was very emotional because by that point my manager had passed away. And so it just felt like the completion of his dream for me, in this really sort of magical way. And I haven't done it again. Somebody asked me last year if I would consider doing a production of Ain't Misbehaving, and I was like, I don't know. I had such a great first time. Like I did it with this wonderful cast. I won Best Actor. The cast won Best Cast. Maybe I should go out on top. I don't know. Maybe I don't do Ain't Misbehaving again. I don't know.
Hey, if you have such good memories, you don't want to spoil it by maybe having a not so great experience next time.
Yeah, you're correct, and I am worried about spoiling what is one of my favorite theater experiences.
Were you able to do theater when you were working for Nickelodeon? Because usually there's lots of episodes.
Yeah, so one thing I've tried to do in my career is I try to keep things. I like to mix things up a little bit, and so during my Nickelodeon years, it was fun to film for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, and then on my breaks from filming, go and do a play. So the first time I did that years ago, I was doing a show on Nickelodeon called The Fresh Beat Band, which was a fully musical show. We did a complete musical on TV every week. It was dance steps and new songs and craziness. And then on my break from that, I got to go to the Pasadena Playhouse and do Smokey Joe's Cafe. And that sort of started the trend of I go do a little TV and then I get a break and I go do some theater. I did Inherit the Wind at the Pasadena Playhouse a year and a half ago. I got to work with Alfred Molina, and that happened while we were on strike. So we were done. We were on a pause from filming my most recent TV show, That Girl Lele, and I got an audition for this play, and I thought, could be fun. I love the Pasadena Playhouse, and then I got to spend 3 months hanging out with Alfred Molina, which was a career highlight both in and out of theater. I'm such a huge fan of his. So yeah, Nickelodeon was great, but also Nickelodeon, because both TV shows I've done for them required me to sing, it's also been really great to keep that muscle sharp.
It's true, because sometimes when you do other stuff like straight play acting or filming, doing movies, you don't get to sing, and then you have to retrain sometimes.
Yeah, you do. But it's been nice to keep it sharp. I tell people all the time, my ultimate dream for my career is to be on like a Grey's Anatomy type TV show, and then in the summer maybe do like a limited run of a musical or a play in New York or London or LA. Maybe squeeze a movie in there and then go back to filming the TV show. Just to constantly be in motion. I'm not great with idle time. I like working. So,
what were some of your favorite roles throughout the year?
Theater or TV or film or all of it?
All of it.
Okay. I think theater wise, there's been so many. Definitely Andre and Misbehaving, definitely a theater highlight. The experience of Inherit the Wind was really magical. I did Jesus Christ Superstar years ago, and I got to be Jesus, and that was really, really fun. Yes. Very challenging, because that music is so challenging and not quite how I sing. So we kind of like R&B Jesus instead of rock and roll Jesus. But the
gospel
it worked. Yeah, it works really, really well. And then TV, I just finished doing a show called That Girl Lele, and I got to be like the dad on the sitcom, and that character I love, that experience I love, those people I loved. I did a movie at the top of the pandemic called Ghosts of the Ozarks, and it was my first time being like the #1 lead of a movie, and we did it in a pandemic, so it was very stressful, but also it's one of my favorite things. Two of my best friends wrote the movie. Another best friend produced and helped direct, and had to really fight to get me the part that they wrote for me, because other people thought, there's maybe other people who are more famous we could get, but I'm really proud of the performance I turned in that. And also, I think it's such a different color on me. People often will hire me to be, bright and shiny and funny, and and I love that. It's fed my soul very, very well. But also, I want to do some grittier stuff. So yeah, those are the ones right off the head. If anyone watches this later and I didn't mention a project you did, I apologize. I'm just going off of my immediate
That usually happens when you are put on the spot, I guess.
Yeah.
Later after the interview, you think, "Oh, I should have said."
Yeah, it always happens that way, but I'll stick by those. I mean, the Fresh Beat Band was a really wonderful experience. It was exhausting, in the way the theater is exhausting, but like literally we filmed on Monday, we would get the script. By Friday, we would have filmed it, and every week it was like, here's 3 new songs, here's 3 new dances, and you're filming it, and you're doing the regular show, and so that also was a great boot camp. And then that TV show went on tour as a concert series, and so we did 308 concerts in 2.5 years across America. So that was also great training, to like I think there was one stretch where we did 36 shows in 18 days at one point, and I was just like, whoa. But you learn it, you adapt, you make adjustments, you learn how to protect your voice, all of that, all that stuff.
Still, it really must have been exhausting, because it's really too much in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, it was by the end of that stretch. Luckily, we had a break after that. At the end of that stretch, I needed like 2 or 3 days to not talk, because it's just, no matter what you do, doing that many shows in that short amount of time, it's not great.
What are some of your favorite stage memories?
Oh, wow. It's funny. I was just there's a podcast called Smartless that Jason Bateman and oh my gosh, I'm blanking on their real names. I'm thinking their character names now. But anyways, Smartless, check it out. It's so much fun. And one of the questions that they ask on there is, do you have any like crazy theater stories? So whenever I listen to it, I'm like, oh yeah, do I? Boy, do I ever. Because my favorite moments on stage aren't necessarily when things are going right. It's when things are going wrong. And then because it's live, you have to make real-time adjustments. So I did a play in college, and we had maybe 5 pages of dialogue left. And you know, it's a two-hander, and this guy and I are like having this final battle. And out of nowhere, for no reason, his nose just starts gushing blood. And like, I didn't touch him. I didn't do anything to him. And then he started wiping he was like, oh. And we're still trying to finish this because we got to finish the show. And then he reached out his hand. I guess as an actor's instinct, he thought, oh, I have blood on my hands. Let me use it. So he reached out and he touched my face with his bloody hand and like ran it across my face. And in the moment, I was like, okay, but we have to finish the show. And so I kind of took it and I looked at it and I sort of I gave my little monologue and killed him and finished the show. And then backstage, he was like, oh my God, that was thrilling. And I was like, if you ever, that was so gross.
Yeah.
And how dare you? I did West Side Story years ago, also one of my favorites. I played Tony in West Side Story. And we got to the end of the show and, you know, Chino came out to shoot me. And he was blocked, so he was behind me, so I couldn't see him. And I ran at Anita and anticipated, because I was younger, I anticipated the gunshot. So I tripped into her arms and there was no gunshot. And I was like, oh gosh, maybe he's not there. I don't know. And so I'm looking at her and I start improvising and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, Anita, they said you were dead. They said you were dead. What are you doing here? And then I like turned her so that I could whisper to her. And I was like, is he back there? Like, what's happening? You need to help me out here. And she just froze. She was just like frozen in fear. And then all of a sudden I started hearing multiple bangs. And so I guess the gun had malfunctioned. And then everyone backstage had the same idea, which was to bang on the walls backstage. But I didn't figure out what that meant in time. So now I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then I just looked at her and I said, Anita. And she said, yeah. And I said, ah. And I just fell down. And the audience started laughing. And I was like, oh, this is terrible. Like, this is supposed to be this deep emotional thing. And then I started crying. And then, you know, we got the audience back and we ended the show. And then I found out later on that the poor guy, this is his first time ever doing a play. He ran out on stage, he pulled the trigger, nothing happened. He hit the gun like this, and all the caps in the gun fell out and hit the ground. And then he panicked more. And then in a last-ditch effort to end the show, he picked up one of the caps off the ground and he threw it at me. And somehow, right when he threw this tiny little thing at me, I said, ouch, and died. So it looked like I died from a bullet being thrown at me. And I was like, this is why theater's great, though. Like, this is why it's great, because in TV or film, we would have just called cut. We would have reset. We would have done it again. In theater, we legitimately had to improvise our way back to the emotional crux of the climax of the show. And after the show, you know, a lot of the audience members and the director was there that night. And the director was like, I don't know how you navigated that, but that was great. Also in Ain't Misbehaving, every single night of the show, there's a song called How You Babe. And every single night in that song, I would split my pants. No matter what they did, they kept reinforcing it. They kept layering it. Everything they would do, every single night I'd walk off stage and I'd have this maybe like 30-second window before I had to be back on stage. And costumes would be like, your butt's out again. You got to change as fast as you can. And I was like, again, it's theater. It's great. My mom and dad were in the audience one of the nights, and my mom was like, oh my God, I just kept thinking, I hope he's wearing underwear. It's like, yeah, I'm not going on stage without underwear on, mommy. Don't you worry. Yeah, and I'm sure there are a million more stories, but that's probably enough for now.
I don't know what it is, but whenever I do an interview, an actor tells me they tore their pants at one show or another. There's something cursed about theater pants, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because clothes are not made for what we do in them. Like I'm, especially in Misbehaving. I was doing jump splits and actual splits and high kicks and all these things, and every single time, in the same dance number, they would just split right on the scene.
Do you have a dream role? Or
Oh, it changes all the time, but the most consistent one my whole life has been, I saw the first musical. I mean, I saw a lot of musicals growing up. Luckily, I grew up in LA. Tourists would come through all the time. The first big Broadway show I saw in New York on Broadway was actually Les Miserables. And I fell in love with it. And so since I was 14 years old, I've been like, one day I will play Valjean. Even though I'm pretty sure there are several notes he has to hit in that are beyond the range that God gave me. So that's probably not going to happen, but it's always been my little like. And then when Hugh Jackman did it in the movie and they lowered the keys a little bit for him, I was like, see, I can do that. Yeah. I only need them to be taken down like one step, and then I'm good. So that's probably, yeah, that's the one consistent dream role.
it's a wonderful role as well, and it's such a deep story. It's a musical is 40 this year as well.
Oh wow, yeah, we just saw it. It came through LA. Was it last summer? And we went and saw it. I mean, it was such a beautiful production. I mean, I've seen some really great ones, and that was probably one of my favorites. The Valjean in that I mean, his voice was stunning. It was just like everyone was like, "How is your voice this beautiful?"
Do you feel a change in the theater world recently with the new politics that are going on in America?
Do I feel a what?
Is there a change since
Um, yes. TV film has, I mean, it's had a rough couple years. And then with the fires we just had here in LA, yeah, that's been a real struggle. It's been really hard. It's been really great for the soul, to see, especially like this season in New York, like the kind of shows that they're doing, like a Gypsy with starring African Americans, which only Audra McDonald, could pull off. Like people, rightfully so, the most Tony nominated, actor in history and the most awarded Tony actor in history, has the gravitas and the star power to make a show that has traditionally been so white, star Black people, and tell the same story, and show sort of the universality of like the human experience, and that's just wonderful. My TV daughter from That Girl Lele is one of the leads in the Stranger Things show in New York right now, and it's just really lovely to see, the Broadway I grew up on. When people ask me like what my dream roles are, I'm like, it's funny, when I was younger, so many of the shows, I didn't see people like me in them, and so I didn't dream about being in them. Like I saw Phantom of the Opera on Broadway, and I left there, and I was like, good show. I have no desire to be the Phantom of the Opera or be in the Phantom of the Opera. It doesn't feel like it represents me, but I loved the people I saw in it, and so I'm hoping that TV and film are just a little bit slower because of the amount of time it takes to make them. I'm hoping that theater will be our saving grace, as it has been since its inception. That as we're going through the craziness that we're going through right now, that theater will continue to speak truth to power. I saw this wonderful show at La Jolla Playhouse down in San Diego a month ago called 3 Summers of Lincoln, and it was a musical about Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass and their like unlikely friendship as Abraham Lincoln's trying to figure out how to use the Civil War to end slavery. And it was great. I mean, the guy who played Frederick Douglass was phenomenal. And the gentleman who played Abraham Lincoln was actually a Hispanic dude, you know, a Latinx person. And it was really mind-blowing. The music was great. And, you know, full disclosure, my partner is the music supervisor on the show. So, you know, that's why I was down there seeing it. But like, I hope it goes to Broadway. You know, I hope that it can sit in a space like Hamilton, you know, where because I do think that we're never going to live in a world where race is not a thing. But what we can do is maybe help people understand that, like, on a molecular level, on an evolutionary level, race means nothing. Like, you can't look at my genetic coding and go, oh, this is a brown person. Like, it would just be like, this is a human. And I think that sometimes when you can put humans in different spaces, when you go to see Hamilton and you see Black and brown people playing the founding fathers, it doesn't change what the founding fathers did, but it humanizes it, I think, a little bit more. And theater has always been a space where that happens. I think that's why with this current administration, you know, it's been very encouraging to see a lot of these theaters fighting back and saying, you know, no, we're not going to decrease our diversity. No, we're not going to pick shows you want us to pick. We're going to make these shows, and we're going to trust. Some of these theaters have lost funding from the government. We're going to have to trust that, like, the audience will step in and you know, support those projects. Three Summers of Lincoln we ran for 2 months and they were sold out every day. You know, so yeah, I'm hopeful that theater will continue to be that safe space to create these things, and we will at times deal with audiences that maybe aren't open to it. I've been reading recently about the touring company of Shucked in the UK and some of the things that the actors there have dealt with in some of the more conservative pockets of that country, and you know, and that's just, you know, it's sadly where we are, but you know, we'll be brave. I mean, there are people, I never want to overplay how important art is, because, you know, there are people out there who are curing cancer and, you know, saving lives. But I do think that, like, for marginalized groups, for LGBTQ plus people, for, you know, especially our trans community, like, theater and the arts are a space that has taught people how to love the unknown. You know, I remember years ago realizing that, you know, as an LGBTQ person, that I didn't have any trans friends, and that it was an experience that I was missing, so that I could be a fully rounded person and be able to really advocate for people on a soul level. I knew I was raised by good people to be a good person. So I knew, but I wanted the personal, you know, connection. And I remember vividly, I was doing a musical at the time, a musical of the movie Independence Day. And I was playing Will Smith and singing about aliens. And I was working with Chaz Bono, you know, who is trans and Cher's son. And also Chaz's documentary about his journey was out at the time. And it was like, oh, wow, like, literally art is opening my mind to experiences that are beyond what I know. And it changed how I function for the better. And I think that's why people who are closed-minded individuals attack art first, because art has the ability to introduce you to worlds you may never know.
Because the one thing when I'm in theater groups online or reading about audiences, the one thing I can never understand is when theater people are conservative. That's really like, how? Yeah.
How? It's so, like, from what we do to who we do it with to, like, the whole process, it's like, it doesn't. I think that's why, like, there have been a couple of Broadway folks, who have come out as conservatives recently, and it's been devastating to the community. And people are like, "What?" I'm like, "Because it's like you do a musical or a play. If you're in the arts, like a queer person, a trans person, a Black person, a Latinx person, an Asian person. Like,
Yes.
how could you know people in the intimate way that we in the arts get to know each other, and then vote against decency and kindness in those people's direction, and I think it's also crazy because so many people both in and out of the arts are like, well, I didn't know that this was going to be this. I'm like, but people told you that it was going to be it, and you prioritize some other thing over this living, breathing creature that's in front of you. Like my introduction, I didn't grow up in a household or a family even where there was queerness. And so as I started to recognize that in myself, I was like, where the hell do I go? Who do I look to learn about this, to see like what this could look like? And the arts were, where I did it, where I started to meet people and go, oh, that person has something interesting going on with them. Oh, I wonder, like I told someone, I came out, speaking of theater experiences that are great, I did a play in college, my last year of college, and my character was bisexual. And at the end of the run, I had a meltdown and I couldn't figure out what was going on with me. And then, one of my friends looked at me and said, I don't want to scare you, but is it possible that you like your castmate, like your male castmate, that you actually fell for him in the process of pretending to, and now you don't know what to do with that because it's going against what your brain is telling you is right? And I was like, no, how dare you? And then 30 seconds later, I was like, oh my God, yes. It was so natural for me to flirt with and cuddle into and do all of the intimate things I had to do on that stage with my male co-star. Oh crap, like literally doing a theater show was the wake-up call for me to be like, oh no, this is who you are. And now you have to start this journey. And it's been a lucky journey for me because I happen to come from, parents and extended family who had no problems with that.
Wonderful.
Yeah, but that's the power of theater, and that's the scary part for people about theater.
Did you ever have any difficulty working on TV, perhaps, or for some show you did that you had to hide it?
I have been very lucky. I have not. When I did the Fresh Beat Band, I was nervous about it. And we had individual meetings with like the media department. And they said, tell us everything because we're going to promote the show. We're going to do all the things. And we need to not be surprised by anything. We need to know what's coming down the pipeline. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, and I went into the room, we closed the door, and I was like, well, I'm gay. And I have a partner. And, we've been together for a long time. And the lady, I'll never forget, her name is Heather. And Heather looked at me. This was my first time meeting Heather. We've since become very good friends. And she said, well, how gay are you? And I said, what do you mean, how gay are you? She said, oh, no. Like, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just like on a scale from like, leave me alone to like, I'd like to be the grand marshal of a gay pride parade. Where are you? And I said, well, at that point in my life, I was very much so like between a 0 and a 10, I'm a 5. Like, I just, like I want to live my life, but I don't necessarily need, all the chaos of too much or too little. I just want to be right in the middle. And she said, okay, great. And it was never a problem. The show I just finished doing, my character had a wife, had 3 children, came up on day 1 and it was never a problem. As my boss on that show, David A. Arnold, said to me, he said, yeah, no, I don't give a crap about that. Can you do the job? You know, he said, at the end of the day, you came into the room and you took this job because you were the best person to do it. He said, and none of the other stuff should ever matter in the course of what we do. And I said, well, thank you for that. You are correct. It's not always the case. I've been very lucky. I joke all the time with my friends in the business. You know, they're like, they always say that I have the straightest career. They're like, you're always, you know, like straight, girlfriend, wife, children, you know, and I'm like, yeah. I mean, I'd love to, you know, to do other things, but people keep hiring me for this thing. So I'm, you know, so I'll do it and I'll audition for the other stuff. And one day someone will say, you know, come play this gay character, and I'll say thank you. But yeah, it's been the opposite problem for me. In fact, like I tell people, and then they're like, "What? Oh, that's crazy." Okay, anyways, come play this straight guy.
That's so great that you had such open-minded people in the casting because, well, usually it doesn't happen, but it's such a great experience for you.
Yeah, I said to someone, the hardest thing I ever had to do was come out to my parents. And it wasn't because I was worried they wouldn't accept me, but I was like, oh man, I think my parents are wonderful, but like, what if there's that small chance, you know, that they have a problem with it? And they did not. But also that was really, it empowered me because now when I'm out in the world, I'm kind of like, listen, my mother and father love me. And so I don't give a crap what you think. My brother and sister love me. My grandparents love me. My aunts and uncles and cousins were good. So I don't really care if you don't get it because these people, you know, starting most importantly with my parents and my siblings, you know, these people get it and love it and love it about me. And as with anything in life, like I tell people, like I've played, you know, in Ghost of the Ozarks, I play a doctor in 1864 Arkansas. Like, I'm not a doctor. I wasn't alive in 1864. I don't have a crazy war scar on my arm, you know, that required crazy, you know, 1800s style surgeries, you know, like I'm not married to a woman and have 3 teenage kids. You know, I've never murdered anyone. I've never been arrested. I've never, you know, but like I've played characters that have had those experiences on stage and on screen. And I tap into things in me that let me do that because that's my job. And so I'm often like, I'm annoyed when I hear people talk about like limiting people based on their sexual preferences or their gender identities. I'm like, can you do the job? Because my job is not to be myself. And so whatever is in me that doesn't serve the character has to go away, no matter what it is. You know, I played a like crazy homicidal like maniac in a thing. I was threatening to like blow people up. And it was the most fun week of my life on camera. And the writer was like, "You're having the best time." I was like, "Yes, A, no one lets me do this. But B, also, this is not who I am." And so I got to not be myself for the week. I got to live in this person's headspace and be like, okay, this is my job this week. And then in between takes, we'd laugh, and then they'd call, you know, and then get back into it. So that's what I signed up for. And I have been very lucky. To my knowledge, I'm sure someone somewhere along my 30 some odd year journey in this career has not hired me for that reason, but I don't know about it. So you know, which is lucky because I know people who have the opposite experience. So
Is there anything you would want to say to people starting out in theater?
yeah, spoke to some kids a couple weeks ago at the conservatory that I went to here in LA, and they asked me a similar question, and I said, make sure you love it. I think that the problem today, I'm going to sound like an old man now. The problem with kids today, the problem I see in the business now is that there's so many people who've gotten famous quickly for like not great reasons. And so a lot of people just want to be famous.
Yes.
And if you come into this business and you just want to be famous, then it will be unfulfilling and you will be disappointed. It is constant hard work, unbearably consistent rejection. And what I've learned from talking to my friends who are both starting their careers, sort of in the middle of their careers like me, or like, you know, on the mountaintop making millions of dollars, you never lose the fear that this job is the last job. You know, unlike other careers, all my friends who like have regular jobs, you know, like they're all like hitting their strides now. They're vice presidents and, you know, CFOs and CEOs and you know, and I'm like, yeah, you know, I was on a TV show for 3 years and now like the show's done and now I'm out here, you know, auditioning for theater and TV and film again. And I'm hopeful, optimistic that, you know, the next thing is right around the corner, but also like it's scary. And I think that if you don't love it, I always remind myself that at its purest form, my desire to act, to perform, to entertain was just about bringing joy to other people, was just about the feeling I get when I get to be someone else for a group of people and we all go on a journey together. And I believe that if I keep that focus in the front and keep the money and the fame and all the other things in the back, that those things will find me. But at its purest form, I perform because I have to. And sometimes I get paid a lot of money for it, and sometimes I do it for free. But the feeling is still the same, which is this really, really urgent need to connect with people and to experience different perspectives, you know? And so, yeah, so if you're just coming into it because, you know, you just want to get, you know, 100 million views on TikTok, like find something else. This is not easy and it is soul crushing sometimes. And also find a community. You know, when I hang out with you, my best friend's coming over. He has a self-tape to do today. And so we're going to put him on tape and try to get him a job, you know? And so through the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, I've got a community of other artists that I love and who love me. And we cheer for each other when one of us books something, and we hold each other, you know, when you don't get the job or when times are hard. And the crazy thing is, some of my best friends, we have actually gone up for the same role. And it's just the two of us left. And one of them, the other friend will book it or I'll book it. And you still have to show up for your friends.
Yes.
You know, be honest, be like, oh, friend, I'm so glad it's you, but like, give me 30 minutes just to feel, and then let's have a party. Let's celebrate you. So just trying to keep the joy at the forefront, because again, it is a business that, and also separate kids, adults, anyone who's doing this business, you have to separate the audition and the job from yourself. Because there's so much rejection that if you can't separate them, it'll start to feel personal. And that can be really devastating. You know, if you start to feel like you personally are being rejected, as opposed to you just weren't the right look for the role. I've had the good fortune to produce film and theater, and I've sat on the other side and been at the auditions, and I've been like, wow, this is crazy. That guy right there was the best actor who came in, hands down. And I thought, oh, it's his job. But then this person came in, and this person's performance maybe was not as good as this person, but their essence, their look is what the character needs. And so I've got to go tell this person, you were fantastic. So good. But I got to hire this person because this person has the, and so you start to feel, oh, it's not about me. You know, like, am I the vessel you want to tell the story? That's a very long answer. I apologize, but hopefully people can get some nuggets out of there, because it is a crazy business, and it just gets crazier, with streaming and the amount of money it costs now to put on a musical. Some of these, I was in New York 2 months ago or a month and a half ago, and I really wanted to see Othello, and I was like, I don't have $980. Like, I don't have $1,000 for one ticket to Othello. What? This is insanity.
It's really getting too much for most people now to buy tickets to certain shows. It's really crazy.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on todaytix.com and finding like little discounts where we could. Unfortunately, the day that I was supposed to see Gypsy, the whole cast was sick, so they had to cancel that show. But I went across the street and I saw Sunset Boulevard, so I got to see Nicole Scherzinger do her great work. She's so good in that show. I'm going to try to get back to New York in June so I can see Gypsy. Death Becomes Her. I need to see the Stranger Things show. It's just like there's so many shows to see, so little time.
That's good that there are so many shows that are running, because if there weren't, it would be a problem.
Yeah, those COVID years were so sad, and I had so many friends who were out of work for so long and didn't know if or when theater was going to come back, and so to see it back and just to like look at the box office returns, for this season, and to see like records being broken and butts in seats and so many shows, finding audiences, it's encouraging. Because I don't know who we are without theater. Like, who's going to hold that mirror up to society and show us ourselves if we can't get people to go sit in theaters and watch shows, and then send those shows around the country and let people be changed from watching them. I'm excited. I know Shuck's on tour right now. It comes to LA in August. Can't wait. Some Like It Hot will be in LA, I think in June or July. I just saw Harry Potter here in LA, last month. I just saw this great show at the Geffen Playhouse here in LA called Furlough's Paradise, that's running for the next month at the Geffen. Life of Pi will be here in a couple of weeks, and I'm really excited to see that. Like, I love theater, so I'm always trying to see as much of it and do as much of it as I can.
Which actor taught you something you will always remember?
Ooh, which actor taught me something I will always remember? You know what? Alfred Molina, when I was doing Inherit the Wind. In general, one of the kindest and sweetest souls you'll ever meet, and so supremely, like, absurdly talented. But I was in a crisis of confidence. And I was really worried that I wasn't being seen the way that I want to be seen. And there was a role in that show that I wanted badly, that I thought I was perfect for, and they offered me a different role. And it really sent me into this spiral. I tried to quit the show. I've never told this publicly, but I tried to quit the show. They talked me into staying. And then I found out who was in the show, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I stayed. But I wrote Alfred Molina a note on closing night, and I told him, I said, working with you has been a dream. I've loved you my entire life. Always admired your work. And when I got here, I was lost. I was feeling unseen, unheard, unappreciated. And working with you, like, blew wind back into my sails and like made me feel great. And I just want to tell you like what it meant to me. And he read the note, you know, and he didn't say anything. And then later that night, we were sitting, you know, around the little table by the dressing rooms. And I was like, well, maybe I didn't articulate it well. So I started to speak it to him. And he said, can you stop doing that? And I said, stop doing what? He said, you keep downplaying your role in what's happened here. I can't do what I do without you. You are as integral to my performance on this stage as I am to yours or anyone else's who's on this stage doing this show. And to put me above you does all of us a disservice. Because I'm great in this show because you're great in this show. And I, you know, blinked away the tears and I was like, received. I thank you for that. You're correct. I was moving through this space like I should be, like I was so lucky to be there. You know, and he was looking at me like, what are you talking about? From day one, we've been on stage going at each other and having this fun experience that I can only have because it's you. You know, and so that was really, really great advice, both as an artist and also as just a human being who was just sort of feeling like less than, you know. So yeah. Thank you, Alfred Molina.
A wonderful lesson that I think a lot of people need to learn, because confidence is always hard to feel great about yourself at times.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, this business will do that to you, you know. Like I just had a lot of rejection up until that point, and then I thought, well, here's the thing I can do. And then once I said yes and got on stage and started rehearsing, I was like, oh, actually, the role I thought I wanted to play was the wrong role. They were correct. This is the role I'm supposed to be playing. And it was just a really great experience. And so yeah, I'll always be grateful to him for that. You know, it's really wonderful when your heroes live up to, you know, to your expectations. Also, it's great when they don't, because it's nice to know, you know, I've met a couple of folks who have not lived up to what I thought they would be, and I learned just as much from that, because I was like, oh, okay, I don't want to be you. All right, great. Glad I know that.
Is there anything in this interview that hasn't been asked but that you want to add, or something you really wish to discuss?
No, I think we've covered a lot of stuff
Yes.
today. It was a nice little trip down memory lane. I gotta, you know, I was just saying last week, I was like, oh man, it's time. It's been I think 2 years since I've done a musical, so I'm like, it's time to do one of those again. So this is a nice little reminder of how much I love theater.
It's always a wonderful place, and I think especially now, it's, as you said, we're saying, it's needed more than ever.
Needed more than ever. You know, you got to take those shows around and bye. You got to take those shows around and you know, change people's lives. And like, it's always great, especially as the artist, you know, when because I do what I do because I saw people do it and it inspired me to do it. And the great thing about both my theater side of my career and my TV film side of my career is that I'm very lucky that I've done enough. I often feel like I haven't done enough, but I've done enough that young people are now reaching out to me to tell me that I'm part of the journey that made them want to be an artist. And I think that is so full circle and such a very pure moment for me, because, you know, I saw someone on a TV screen on a stage, you know, and said, yes, I want to feel that. And if I can give that to someone else, you know, then maybe I'm doing all right.
Well, really great to hear everything you had to say about the theater and your feelings about it, because, well, it's kind of what I've been feeling as well in this day and age. It's just the escape and but also the things you learn. It's always a good thing.
Yeah, you know, and again, theater will continue to push needles. I mean, you know, it didn't end up in a nomination, but like, you know, Jinx Monsoon was considered in the Best Actress category. You know,
Yes.
Alex Newell, you know, who I believe is non-binary, but like, you know, winning, like theater is going to figure this out for us. Theater is figuring out, you know, how to recognize, you know, folks from across the spectrum of gender identities and all of these really wonderful things. And people can, you know, we just have to keep making sure that the arts, but theater in particular, remains a space where like people know they're safe.
Yes.
You know, come here, we see you, we accept you, you can find your way, you know, in this space to be anything and everything that you want to be. And while you're doing it on such a level that you can help other people see themselves. I always tell people my entire career is driven by being a little Black queer boy and not seeing anything that represented that out in the world, at least to me, and hoping now as an adult that in some small way, you know, I'm making it so that that's less likely for a little Black or brown boy today. That like, you know, if you've seen me on a thing and you come and find me and you see pictures and videos of me hanging out with my partner, you know, and being very open about it, that you feel inspired. He's off right now to tech for a musical, 44 the musical, which is running at the Kirk Douglas Theater in LA for the next 2 months, I believe. It's a phenomenal musical about Barack Obama's time in office. It's hysterical. You know, yeah, but yeah, we're out here just doing our best.
I love to hear more about the musical about Barack, because also another thing that's needed to tell at this point to remind us what there has been and what we can still get back, and hopefully one day.
Yeah. It's, I mean, it's I saw the show 2 years ago, and so I'm really excited. It opens, previews start I think tomorrow, and then it opens next Thursday. So I'm excited to see it again in this current space we're in, just to see what it does to me this time. Because I saw it 2 years ago and I still was like, oh my God, what a great time. Oh, life was so good then. You know, and so I'm sure it'll be even more of that.
Yeah.
More of that this time, you know. I miss, you know, I miss the way a lot of us, not all of us, obviously, but the way a lot of us felt during those 8 years. You know, there was so much optimism and hope and possibility, you know.
True. I think that there was something that was taken away. I think that's when, well, he happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the worst thing is that we get him twice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know how anyone saw the first round of that and thought, yeah, more would be great. You know, but there's just a lot of people who don't feel seen, don't feel valued, and are searching for meaning in this world. And you know, we gotta figure out how to help those people, you know. So many young people who just want to like tear things down and start over again. And I'm like, unfortunately, babes, that's not how it works. So we gotta just figure out, you know, with, you know, let's change the system, but we have to do it, you know, from the inside. I don't know what the answer is. I wake up every morning and I just have to choose joy, because the onslaught of chaos, you know, is it's tough to handle, you know. And if you are an immigrant, if you are queer, if you are an ethnic minority, if you're a religious minority, and for some people, you know, you are all of those things. You know, I tell people all the time, I'm like, it's you know, being a Black person is enough in this world, but also being a gay Black man, holy crap. But then, you know, then I go see my friend, and you know, she's a, you know, woman who's Black and, you know, and a lesbian, and you're like, whoa, that's 3. Okay, wow. I only have 2. Okay, you got 3. You know, yeah, but you know, I think that one of the greatest lessons of acting is listening. I feel like listening is what we're missing off of the stage, but like the best actors are so actively listening, because there are, especially with theater, it changes every night depending on what's going on with you, and those subtle changes in tone or delivery, if you're not listening, you miss it, and you can be in a different show. But if you're listening, if you're present, you know, then it's a great little dance that we do. And I think that if I try, I don't always manage it well, but I try my very best to listen, listen to understand, listen to empathize, sympathize, and then whatever response I have to come from that space. And I do think that like that is something I learned in this career, you know, is if something's not making sense to me, if I can't get the words or the moment right, I'm usually 99% of the time I'm not listening. So then I just sit back and I listen, and I go, oh, okay, great, I'm back now. Here we are. Great, let's do it.
I think when actors do those subtle changes, there are a lot of people who often visit the show several times, and then they always talk about how this moment changed and how the actors changed that moment and how the moment changed for them too, how they changed the play, how they felt it, or it became more emotional or deeper, dark.
Yeah, and it's you know, it's great. And also, you know, the reason why theater will always be, in terms of technical approach, theater will always be the top of the acting arts, because when you got to do something 8 times a week, you know, how do you keep it fresh? How do you keep it alive? And you keep it fresh and alive by listening. You know, I will tell you one last theater story. Vanessa Redgrave, legendary actress, God rest her soul. Some friends of mine went to see her in a play 20 years ago, and there was a talk back after. And in the play, she had this like really dramatic monologue that like brought the house down every night. Everyone loved it. You know, she's brilliant. And someone in the audience said, well, you know, that moment is so wonderful. What was going through your head? What were you thinking about in that moment? And she said, well, what was I thinking about today? Oh, yes, today I was thinking that I, Vanessa Redgrave, forgot to get my dry cleaning on my way to work. And so I hope that my husband remembered to get it, because if he doesn't, then I don't have a dress to wear to that premiere tomorrow that we have to go to. And, you know, the person asking was like, what? And she was like, well, yes, I mean, these are humans, aren't they? They're human beings. She doesn't know, my character doesn't know this terrible thing is about to happen to her. So why would I be preparing for it? I'm a human going through a life, and things happen to throw you off course. And I was like, whoa, wow. Also, you got to be real damn good at what you do to do that. And she had a lifetime of experience. And as you get more life experience, that immediate access gets easier. But, you know, for like the little college kid who heard that story, I was like, oh, wow, that's crazy. She was thinking, while she's in character doing this phenomenal job, she was thinking about her real life laundry. You know, but that's real. That's real life. My grandmother passed away on Tuesday, and I've had to keep functioning and doing things. And it's like, oh yeah, this is the human condition. You know, like life happens and you have to keep going. I got to keep doing self-tapes, and I got to keep teaching a spin class, and I got to keep being a good partner and being a good friend, being a good son, being a good brother, being a good cousin. But my heart hurts.
Of course.
But, you know, by 4:30 today, I got to send in a, you know, an audition that's full of joy, and I'll do it because that's what we do. And that's, you know, the one time in my life I tried to stop acting, I felt like I had lost my mind. And I did a play and everything got right in the world again. And I was like, oh, okay. This is how I live a life. This is how I process and regulate the highs and lows of my regular life. I release them through characters.
Thank you so much for this interview and your wonderful words and wisdom. It's been really a nice moment to share with you.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad we got to do this. This is just really fun. I thank you for this.
It was. It is, as I said again, because you've such a great thought process, and things you say make so much sense. It's wonderful to listen to, and I think people who are coming to this business will learn a lot from hearing what you have to say.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have been trying recently, and that's why I said yes to this. I've been trying to move into a space of, I may feel like there's still so much ground for me to cover in this career, but I do have experience and I do have a perspective, and I should share it, because I think that so often this career can be isolating, and I don't want it to be. I want people to know the truth about acting. I want people to know the joy, but also the low that can come with it. And I want them to understand how important it is to like have folks who hold you up, you know, because it ain't easy. But if you love it, there's no alternative. There's nothing else for me than this. So, you know, yeah.
Well, I used to be in performing, and I couldn't because of health reasons. I had to stop, and that's why I decided to do this, to remain close to acting, because it's something I can't let go of.
Yeah, if it's for you, it holds on tight. And I think it's beautiful that you've pivoted, you know, to this, so that there's still a closeness, you know, to it. You know, it's why, you know, I've been, you know, talking to people about possibly directing and like all these other ways where, you know, when I'm not acting, I can still have a closeness to, you know, to it, to keep it going.
Yeah, there's something about being around theater people and talking to them that there's a connection and some understanding that is hard to find elsewhere at times, because I think there's something in theater that makes you think and feel deeper or differently in a way.
Yes. Yes, I cry a lot when I see theater. It doesn't even have to be sad sometimes. I get really overwhelmed when I watch people be great. You know, knowing what it takes to get a job, and then knowing once you get that job, what it takes to excel at it and to be great. When I watch people be great, I will get emotional. And also because one of the other beauties of theater, live performance in general, it happens to me at concerts as well. It's like my soul gets tethered to the people on stage when the art is great, and it feels like we're in it together, and whatever they feel, I feel. And it just like, I'm like, that's the high that I chase all the time. You know, whether I'm watching it from the crowd or on stage doing it, I'm always trying to find that moment where like our souls line up and it feels like it's a magical little dance, you know. And I got to see Audra McDonald in Porgy and Bess years ago, that revival. And it happened in that, every time I saw it, my partner was in that show, and every time I saw it, I was like, ah! He was like, what? I was like, she's so good, so vulnerable, so open, so exposed, so raw, that it felt like, you know, it felt like we were on the same roller coaster together. Which is why I gotta go see Gypsy, because I'm like, I gotta Yeah, but yeah. So, anyways, thank you for this. I appreciate all your words today, and thanks for letting me ramble. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Oh, I don't know what time it is with you, but
It's 12:30. Yeah, I'm gonna make myself a little lunch and
okay.
then help my friend with this audition. It's gonna be great.
Have a wonderful day. And
Okay, thank
okay,
you. Bye.
bye.
Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen.